Man, this thing is gonna be a freaking tank. All right, so little change plans. I think we're gonna mix the two ideas. Keep the firewall, use that firewall. So I think the plan here is I gotta cut a lot out, obviously, to get the engine tucked up in. So I think what I'm gonna do is basically, this is the inner fender mount. I wanna keep that, obviously. So I'm gonna pull the cab back, measure in between this inner fender mount on both sides, figure out what the width of that is, come over here, figure out what the width of that is, and just cut that whole square out. It's gonna be basically right where these cross members are, is where the edge of the cab is, right about here. So I think I'm just gonna take that whole section, pull it out, put it in there. That's the idea. So I went and got the body mounts off the front body mounts off. Actually, I got all the body mounts. The body mounts off the old truck. Got the gas tank pulled off and the step pulled off. So now these guys, I'll be able to mount onto the cab, and then I can place these where they need to go up front, obviously, and then mark the holes, drill the holes, bolt those suckers on, and then that's going to drive right where that's at. So I don't think I'm gonna bolt them up yet. I'm gonna put them on the cab, and that's just gonna help keep the cab centered where I want it, and then I can move the whole cab forward and back in order to fit the front grille, all of that stuff. So I know I talked about this all being way too high, and standing in front of this, you can clearly see it's higher than the firewall, the nose is. So my thought process on this guy is it's all sitting on this cross member here, which those bolts I think share spring perch bolts. Yeah, so I think I'm gonna end up having to take this cross member out. This can go away, this can go away, so we can drop a few inches there. Actually, maybe I'll drop more than that. Yeah, because this whole thing can go away. Or it can move up. I'd like to keep this because that's a good support. So, but this whole bracket, kind of just like the steering was, I can unbolt it, take this off, move this off to the side, slide this whole thing up, drop everything down, and that would give me that'd be able to drop this height down enough to where it fits under the floor, so, or under the hood. So I think today the plan is pull the cab back, cut the firewall out, tack it in place, set it forward, make sure it's where I want it to be, and then start putting the fenders on. And I won't be able to put the grill on until I take care of all this mess, but if I put the fenders on, that's going to be able to tell me forward and back kind of where this needs to be. So that's the plan. I'm not sure I mentioned how much I hate spot welds, but I had to take this brace off because there's some bolts underneath, specifically these two that I need. So lots and lots of spot welds. Ugh. Yeah, remember that part where I said, remember that part I said I was done with this assembly? Yeah, well, I forgot about the furred. He's still watching though. I'm not sure what he's building, but he's building something. Mason, what are you building?
This up.
You're gonna build that up?
Yeah.
Like a tower?
And knock it over.
Smart man. Anyways, so I did pull the heater out. I want to save that. I think if I can, I'll probably have to reuse all the ducting because that went kind of right across this flat part of the firewall. And the new part I don't think is going to be flat in that particular spot. But I'm going to reuse the core for sure, and then I can maybe weld on or build another box that has defroster and heat in it. Obviously, those lines are a lot smaller than the bus lines, but no big deal. And then I'll figure out the motor for 12 volt. But anyways, I gotta get all this garbage out. It probably better just. Oh God, that's disgusting. Bye bye. Probably better just to not have this. Oh, it's asphalt. That's crazy. Probably better not to just have this in here at all. I'll probably find a mouse home. I mean, there's a bunch of gossip in there, so. Oh, there's actually fiberglass there too. Also, no, I am most certainly wearing proper PPE. Face mask, gloves, you know, the normal. And then I think I'll just put all new Dynamat or something. I wouldn't mind making this thing relatively comfortable to drive. Yeah, so more disassembly here. Got the bus firewall part down there. So that's ready to throw up and get some templates, but I need to get all this crap off out of here first before I started cutting. Just so I start with a clean slate. And then I think, unfortunately, probably not going to use those gauges. Just not going to work out the way I'd hoped. So, oh well, it is what it is. It's not like this vehicle is isn't modified, so having modified gauges isn't going to be a big deal, I guess. I still like those gauges though. Damn. Anyways, more to follow. Okay, a few minutes of fun. Got all this cut out. Got everything stripped out. We got windshield wiper motor wires. Obviously those are going to stay. And then just random crap. So got all the dash pulled out. I did this side. I took out the defroster duct. That side I'm just going to leave in. For now, we'll see. Yeah, so all cleared, ready to go. So now I'm going to take a measurement. There's a point right here. I don't want to get into this area because the hood is right underneath of this thing, if I remember right. So I want to stay on this flat part. So I'm going to measure from where this radius stops and where it starts going flat down to the floor, figure out what that height is, and see if I can match that on the new one. If I can do that, if I can match that on the new one, that means that the pedal stays in the same spot as far as floor height goes and all that good stuff. And it's also obviously a much flatter wall to cut instead of this piece here has a radius to it. You can actually see it starts to turn. It starts to turn from, it's flat right here, but then from here it's got a big old curve to it. So I don't want to get into that. So if I can stay below that, I'll be better.
Yeah, so to complete this process, you just hack this shit out here and put it on the ground, and you take this one over here and you kind of make it what you need over there, and you just put this up in the hole, and then Bob's your uncle.
So that's where it starts to get fun. I just cut a big chunk out of that. I didn't want to get into this curve section, but it turns out I have to. So there's 2 bolts here, and there's 2 bolts. You can actually see one right there, and there's another one kind of hidden behind it. That's gonna be a specialty bolt, I think. Anyways, so I had to slice that out, and what's gonna end up happening once I clean up this cut is this is all gonna get pushed back together, welded together, and this panel actually goes up inside actually goes up, I can't get the camera, it goes up inside there about 2 inches. And so what that does is that keeps that hood profile going, but it keeps all of my bolts where they need to be up inside behind here. So I actually need to slide this over another inch, but now this gives me a template to mark out where this goes, and I can cut. I think what I'm going to do, I'm just going to overlap it. I'm just going to overlap it instead of trying to butt weld this all together, because I'm cheap like that. So I'm going to hack this off because this whole section isn't really needed, and I want to keep this little section here because that's where the dimmer switch is in the floor of the Ford. So I want to keep that. I don't need this piece, so this gets cut off, this gets cut off. And the reason I had to slide all this up 2 inches is to get the floor line to match. So basically this was the floor of the bus here. Let's see if I can move this clamp without killing myself. So this was the floor of the bus here. This is the floor of the Ford. This was down almost 3 inches, 2.5 inches. So that's why that all got slid up. So now I'll be able to, I mean, look how crazy that is. This is the factory seam on the bus. This is the factory seam on the Ford. That just freaking blows me away. So in theory, I can cut this seam loose. It's got a bunch of spot welds, which sucks, but I can cut this whole section off and lift this up, and that puts everything right back. This is a throttle stop so that the throttle doesn't go down too far. It puts everything right back up where it needs to be. So that's cool. And again, all of the holes that we need for the airlines, the transmission shifter cable, the kickdown cable, steering wheel hole, everything is exactly where it needs to be. So I did shove this over about 1.5 inches because center line of the steering wheel to this edge, when I had it over where I wanted, actually it's not where I want it, it still needs to go over, only gave me like 9.5 inches between the center of the steering wheel to the inner wall of the truck. Well, that's kind of tight because it's a big ass steering wheel. So I actually shoved this over. Let's see if my mark, oh yeah, there's my center line, and there's a center line. So I need to go over a little bit more, but basically 1.5 inches just to give me a little bit more clearance over here to shove basically the whole instrument panel and everything over. Passengers aren't going to have much of a floor. I mean, there's like, what, 6 inches there? There ain't going to be much. So sucks to be a passenger in this truck, but it's going to rock to be the driver. So that's that. So I'm going to shove this over a little bit more, mark where this goes, cut out about probably a 1/2 inch inside of my mark, and then I'm going to straighten this cut up all the way across, so that I've got a nice clean spot to weld to, and then at that point start tacking this thing back together. I don't have enough weld cord. My dumb ass put this thing in the furthest spot possible. The welder cord is all the way back there. So I went and bought 75 feet of cord. So I'll make a new extension, 75-foot extension cord for the welder. Ooh, look at that. God, I love me coffee. These people need to sponsor me. Make a new extension cord, that way I can bring the welder in. And at that point, man, where are the body mounts on this thing? Oh yeah, see, so this isn't even gonna be affected. So perfect. That's gonna stop right there. So the body mounts won't be affected. At that point, I can put the front body mounts on the cab on both sides, and then lift the cab back up, get these old body mounts off. These are just bolted on. And once this is all welded, and put the cab in its final resting spot, really. I'll need to figure out something on the rear cabs, but that back corner where the gas tank is, that's the one that's going to be a little funky, because I think it's going to fall right in line with where that right where that cross member is. So I meant to get creative with that. This one I think will be okay. And the factory gas tank for the Ford used to sit underneath the step, or on top of the step, underneath the cab. So I'm hoping this air dryer can just stay right where it's at. and I can mount the step around it. So that's the thought. So, man, theoretically, I'd say, man, a couple more days on this thing, and I might be able to, I'm not even going to say it. Yeah, a couple more days on this thing, I can get all the wiring hooked back up in it. I don't even need all the wiring hooked back up. All I need is ignition and throttle, because it's ignition and the engine kill knob. I guess I got to get all the airlines. Yeah, so brakes. Once I get all the stuff back in the dash, I may be able to drive this thing out just like this, and that'll give me a little bit more fired up to start working on this radiator, because that's gonna be a chore in itself. So a little bit of progress. All right, so there's the big gaping hole. I get a little bit carried away cutting this piece out. That's not supposed to be gone, but we'll figure it out, no biggie. So there's the line. This is just a rough line, doesn't need to be exact. That's where the edge of the new firewall touches this one. So I just kind of half, 3/4 of an inch, whatever, past it. And now we'll stab the new firewall in, and anything that was in the way from this one installing should be tight. We're gonna have a little bit of work, funky work down here, because the floor doesn't quite match up. So we'll look at that in a second, but that's the idea. Anybody curious of what the under a hood of a 55 Ford looks like? That's the wiper motor. That's all the wiper linkage there, defroster duct. I'm gonna have to find a place to put that electrical, because I cut that off. So may end up going right here, because this hole is unused. It's got an air line that comes through, but other than that, it's unused. I may move that air line down and put the electrical right there. But anyway, so that's beside the point. Yeah, X-ray vision. Oh, there's the glove box. There you go. Close the glove box. Fun stuff, man. All right, my head's about to explode. Got a headache, so calling it a night. I figured instead of tacking this in and making it permanent, it'd be smart to just zip screw this together, set it in place, make sure the steering works, make sure the brakes work, make sure we don't have clearance issues. We got a couple little things, but nothing major. Go clearance for the exhaust pipe here. The doghouse will probably cover that. Of course, I need to find a doghouse because I threw the one away that I need. However, look at this. That's right. Brake pedals fit where they're supposed to be. Steering wheel is actually, I just have it a couple of bolts in it, but basically where it's going to be. It's got clearance everywhere else. We got clearance underneath the transmission. Probably need to do a little bit of clearance over there, or reroute whatever those are. But yeah, it's getting there. Like the steering column is actually in place. So all I gotta do is move this over, screw the boot on. That's done. Air brake lines are all right there. Hook all those bad boys up. Man, we are rocking. We are rocking. So everything looks to be about where it needs to be at. And body mount, I can't show you. All right, we'll talk about that tomorrow when there's more light. But anyways, yeah. Perfect. Perfect, perfect, perfect. Yep, that makes me happy. Now I'm going to sit on this bucket and sit behind the steering wheel and make vroom vroom noises. Because, that's what you're supposed to do. All right, coming back later.